Hi, have you ever set a boundary with someone and just been so convinced that you were right and they were wrong, and that you finally figured everything out and that this was going to be your boundary, and you just gave that person all your business and let them know the what for, and then later on, maybe even within a few minutes, realized, holy cow, I'm so wrong. How could I have been so wrong? Are they going to forgive me for the 50 millionth time? What is wrong with me? How do I keep getting this wrong? If you're struggling with boundaries and this sounds familiar, then I'm going to give you 6 phases that we go through that creates a barrier in setting and holding boundaries in just a minute. Hi, my name is Olivia. I'm passionate about helping you understand what relational trauma is, so that you can prevent it, overcome it, and move on with your life. So today is all about 6 phases or 6 barriers that we face when we struggle with codependency that prevents us from being able to clearly see and set and talk about healthy boundaries. So as you go through these 6 phases, you'll notice that there is a lot of clarity, and then it's confusing, and then there's a lot of emotion, and then there's a lot of fear, and there's a lot of panic, and it's really driven by a lot of anxiety. So these are really emotions that you feel every time you're faced with trying to set and hold a boundary. And it's hard because you will have those moments where you are so convinced of what you know, so convinced that you were right, so convinced it's the other person, and then it can start to spiral from there. So all of this comes from my book, How to Stop Chasing Rejection. You can find this on Amazon. I will put a link in the description. And also, I have been asked to hold my books up a bit longer, so I'm going to try to remember to do that. And to put a QR code on the screen so that if you're able to do that, maybe that'll make it a bit easier as well. Okay, so here are the 6 phases. So here is the problem number 1. First off, when we struggle with codependency, because we're trying to go above and beyond so that someone can see that we're valuable so that we don't get left, the problem is we're so focused on doing everything right that a lot of times we don't realize how we're treated until we are fed up with it. So all these points where we could have said something, could have tried to interrupt it or express a different want or a need, we kind of miss all those phases or all those opportunities. And now we're not trying to talk about a problem until we are so fed up that we're pretty much freaked out and can barely think straight. So that is the first phase, is the fed up phase. And the problem is we have waited to try and set this boundary until we are completely fed up. So here in and of itself is the first part of why it is we fail when we're setting boundaries. So all of this comes from, there's a diagram on page 62 of How to Stop Chasing Rejection. That's what I'm working from today. So that's the first thing, is that we don't set a boundary until we're fed up. Then the next thing we do, it's like we get really fed up and we feel really powerful, and now we just are not going to take it anymore. And so we're very determined, very strong, very straightforward in setting this boundary. A lot of times we're attacking another person's character. We might be screaming at this point because when you wait till you're fed up, you're just not thinking clearly. And that's the problem. We're trying to set boundaries when we're not thinking clearly. That's just not a good idea. It's not going to work. So from that phase, the second phase, or number 2, is that we draw a hard line in the sand. So a lot of times when we are working through an issue, there is a dialogue, which means I talk, now you talk, now I talk, now you talk. But if we're waiting until we're fed up, we are just pretty much laying down the law, right? So now after this character assassination, and now I'm going to tell you this is how it is going to be moving forward, because I'm feeling the need to protect myself. I'm feeling like you're my enemy. So I'm not interested in a dialogue. I'm only interested in self-preservation, and I don't really care what you think about it, your perspective, where you're coming from, your point of view, what's been going on for you, your experience. I'm not entertaining any of that. So that's the second part of the downfall, is that we're drawing a super hard line in the sand. And the problem with that is that hard lines in the sand, they're not realistic. It's not something that someone can hold or uphold. It's just very one-sided, very heavy in an extreme way. It doesn't work. Okay, so here is the third thing. Once we are fed up, we draw that super hard line in the sand, then we go to work at recruiting other people. So part of it, if you struggle with codependency, you're starting to feel guilty. You're starting to feel a little bit like, did I do the right thing? Is it really me? Is it them? Like we're kind of a little bit on the fence, but we're still pretty confident that it's not us, that we're innocent. So what we do is we reach out to another person and try to convince them and tell them why we did what we did, why we said what we said, why we had to set that very hard line in the sand. So we're basically trying to recruit them to our side, and on the flip side of that, we're turning the other person into the villain or the bad guy. So now we're trying to prove our innocence. We're trying to build like a little army for ourselves. And then we're also turning the other person into the bad guy. But if you have ever done this, you will know that the second you start to recruit someone, you're already starting to see how one-sided you were, or how maybe aggressive you were, or how hard on the other person you were. So from there, the fifth phase is you start to doubt yourself. So you started off very confident when you're fed up, very confident when you're drawing that hard line in the sand. You got a little bit shaky, you started to recruit someone else, but in explaining your innocence and vilifying the other person, you actually start to almost talk yourself out of your boundary and of how you're maybe not that innocent, and maybe it wasn't all of them, and maybe it's actually maybe even you. So you just really start to doubt yourself. And then the next phase, this is the fifth phase. Sorry, that was the fourth phase. The fifth phase is you start to backpedal. So now I'm starting to panic a little bit. I'm probably going to call the person that I tried to recruit back and say, you know what, actually, they're an angel, they're a saint, they do all these things for me. It's actually me. I don't know how I got it so wrong. I'm actually the bad one. They're actually the saint. They're the hero. I'm the villain. And I don't know what I was doing. And, can you just forget everything I said to you? But the problem is they're not going to forget it. And now we're struggling even more, because now we're feeling like, oh man, now I look so, unstable to this other person because I was just unstable with this other person. So once you backpedal, the sixth phase of the cycle, which completes the cycle, is that you go to the person who you set the boundary with, that first initial person you were fed up with, and you remove the boundary. It's okay. You don't have to come home before 10. It's fine. I'll go ahead and do X, Y, and Z. You know what? You're right. It's not you. It's me. And I'm sorry. Forget what I said. So this is the problem with boundaries with someone who's struggling with codependency, is that when we have such times when we're so certain that it's not us, that we see it clearly, that there needs to be a boundary, there probably does need to be a boundary. But because of how these cycles and phases, the part of the phases in the cycle play out, it causes us to doubt ourselves every time we go through it. And then we learn boundaries like the scariest thing in the world. So now I'm really not going to set them. But then I am going to reach a point, again, when I am so fed up, I don't have a choice but to try to set it. But then I'm going to enter these phases again. And in the end, I'm just going to remove the boundary. So I'm really teaching the person that I'm trying to set a boundary with to not respect pretty much anything I'm saying, because they know that in like 20 minutes or a day or 2 days or however long, that I'm going to go back to them and I'm going to be the one apologizing, when there's a good chance they're the ones who need to be apologizing. But if they just wait me out, I will probably come find them and apologize and tell them, never mind. They basically could do whatever they want. And I'm just going to keep cleaning up the mess, or keep being the one who's disappointed, or keep being the one that's dealing with it. So you can see, wow, if this is everything that I go through every time I try to set and hold a boundary, it's going to be very hard for me to not be miserable in my relationships. Because if I can't just openly communicate with someone, if I can't just, clearly, effectively say what it is I want and need, then I'm always going to be the one who doesn't have. I'm always going to be the one that has the part of the relationship that is lacking, or the one that always has to be sorry, the one that never gets to have needs or wants or express them. So here is a tip. One thing to learn to do is to not wait until you're fed up to talk about the boundary. You got to do it way back here when it's barely starting. So the second that you if you gasp, or if you have a step back, or if you're like, why are they doing this again? Right? We have to pay more attention to ourselves, to what we're thinking, what we're feeling in our bodies, and learn these are the moments I need to try to talk about it. not wait until I cannot even think clearly because I am so upset. So that's the first thing. Don't wait until you're fed up to try to set a boundary, because remember, when you're fed up, you don't think clearly, it's not going to work. The second thing is, when you draw a line in the sand, if you miss the fact that you're fed up and you try to set the boundary, if you draw that line in the sand, then it's really important to hold what you can rather than trying to undo it or go back and say like, oh, it's this, it's this, it's this. Like, no, if I said that, I am to a degree going to try and hold whatever part of that I can hold, rather than waiting and removing the entire boundary. So just try to think of or see if there's any part of that that can be held. The third thing is, for phase 3, is not to recruit someone else. If you have a private conversation with someone and it doesn't include or involve another person, it's not going to impact or affect them, then just try to keep it to yourself. So instead of reaching out and saying why you did what you did, tell yourself why you did what you did. Reassure yourself why you did what you did. Because the second you try to recruit someone, you start to weaken your stance. You start to feel dependent. You start to feel worried. That is part of that cycle. So that's not the same as getting support, right? When you're having support, that would be back here. But right now, I'm just recruiting. I'm just trying to alleviate my own guilt. I'm trying to get someone else to say how bad that other person is too, so I don't feel as bad for having to set a boundary. So stop yourself from recruiting and just try to journal about it. So you can see as you go through the cycle, and there's lots more from how to stop chasing rejection, in the end, there are ways to overcome those barriers to setting boundaries. And the first thing we have to do is learn more about boundaries. What are boundaries? How do you hold them? What does it mean and look like to hold a boundary? For sure, you can learn, because anyone can learn to set and hold boundaries. You can also check out my book. This is another one that I'll also link. It's a model that I created for setting and holding boundaries in relationships. It is the Relationship Trust Boundary Model. And again, this makes it really simple to set and hold boundaries in your relationships. It's a diagram that teaches you how to do it. You could really learn it pretty quickly and even teach it to anyone. So both of those will be in the description. Wishing you all the best with your boundaries, and to stop setting boundaries when you're fed up, and also stop recruiting people, and eventually, not removing the boundary. Talk about the parts that you need to talk about in terms of, I might need to apologize for how I delivered that. If I screamed, if I called names, if I was demeaning, yes, I need to apologize about that, but the boundary stays. I don't remove the boundary because I need to apologize for my behavior. So again, all of that and more is found in How to Stop Chasing Rejection. All the luck to you with your boundaries. Take good care, and I'll see you in the next one.